All right, we've already begun the meeting at our closed session, and now we're at the point of agenda additions. Does anybody, well, I guess I have one already, for MIC TV access to the Township building. I'm gonna put that under other, number 1. Does anybody have anything else?
Yes, I would like to add a J under the superintendent report for lot 24 on Loud Drive.
Okay, anything else? I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Ms. McGuire. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the agenda's set. Next is a public comment period. For this first one, there's a card to fill out and turn into the superintendent to speak. There's a 4-minute time limit. And when you come to the podium, please introduce yourself. Do we have any cards?
We do, we have J. Jacobs for the non-response for wire downs by Oscoda Township Fire Department.
When is my time, sir? When I get to the podium? Or?
Yep. After you introduce yourself, Jay.
I will. My name is Jay Jacobs. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
My name is Jay Jacobs. I'm the Community Affairs Director for Consumers Energy. I'm responsible for intermingling and working with the local community officials to solve problems. I'm also with my coworker, Lisa Douglas, who's the Director of Safety Interaction with the Fire and Police Department statewide. We've been made aware through the chief, and I want to start this by saying I have the utmost respect for Chief McGregor. He's an ultimate professional. His firefighters are awesome. We have nothing but praise for them. He has a concern, and it's a valid one. We've not been very good at responding to wire down situations when they've been on scene to relieve them. And there's a hesitation on the firefighters' part now to even participate, and I understand that also. We've begun a process in consumers to look at this statewide, and we've got a lot of activities going on, far more than I can talk about in 4 minutes. We've got the operations personnel group working, the safety group is working, the community affairs group is working to get those times down to an acceptable amount and to improve the communication between the 911 call dispatch center and Consumers Energy's dispatchers, so that they know an ETA when they're going to be there to relieve them, to give these chief and the other members of the fire department an opportunity to plan their manpower. We've not done a good job all the way around, and there's been an exchange, there's been responsibility on both sides. 4 numbers that were given, incorrect numbers called, but the bottom line is we're all working for the same thing. We're all working to protect the safety of the public. And that's number 1. Fire and emergency folks, yours do a great job. We are a major taxpayer in the county, in the township. 6 figures or over. I can quote the amount if someone likes to know that, but and it's a service that's supplied to members of the township that pay taxes. Fire service is important. We really are concerned that if the chief makes a determination and works through the board that they're not going to respond to a wire down unless there's a fire caused by that wire down, that we're going to be putting the public at severe risk. And that we don't want that to happen, and I'm sure the chief doesn't either. So we're working on our end to improve that whole process and make it better for everybody. And I would hope that he would hold off on the end of result that he's looking at and saying, we're just not going to respond, because that's unacceptable. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay,
Yes.
do you have this problem with other communities that have complained about the?
Honestly, we've had more problem in northern Michigan,
Uh-huh.
and it's basically because we have such a large area that we serve. My 9 counties are 5,800 square miles. We have 1 service center right now servicing those 9 counties.
West Branch.
Yes, we are now building a service center in Tawas.
Oh.
We came up here, we looked at properties on the Oscoda Air Base, we looked in Lincoln, we looked in Tawas City, we selected a site on Ralph Western Drive, Construction is supposed to start early 2019 and be completed before summer's end. And that they'll service this side of the state and give us one step toward being much better at what we're not doing well by having crews more readily available. We also are having people report to home with their equipment so they can respond directly from home and not have to go and get equipment to do that. That's gonna make it a much better process as well.
Why wouldn't you have included that in your original remarks? That's significant.
Because 4 minutes is not very much time.
Still
We've got a lot of great activities going on. If we want to, you can ask questions later of me,
Yeah.
and I'd be more than happy to stay and discuss those with you. Okay.
Great.
I would like to give you a kudo. This gentleman is a guy that helped us with well over $200,000 grant for the pier here a few years ago. So,
Yeah,
thank
but it
you.
was a worthwhile and exciting opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have any other cards?
We do. We have Mr. O'Connor about the video RAB meetings.
Good evening, folks. I know you're all aware of the big problem that we have on the base with the PFAS. And the meetings that we have with our RAB board are videoed in the past, and they've been paid for, but there's been some discussion about not paying for them any longer. And I know that the Chippewa tribe has been asked to, participate in the expense of those videotaping, and the Air Force has been asked to participate in the videotaping costs. But the main thing is that whether the township pays for that, and that way, if these other entities help to pay for it afterwards, because we're not getting an answer from them right away. But if we can get that paid for, everybody who has anything to do with this contamination gets the benefit of those videos on YouTube from the East Coast to the West Coast, people who live down south in the winters, and even the people on the RAB, whether they're community members or they're stakeholders from the organizational RAB side. So everybody it's widespread benefit. So I'm hoping that you guys will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other cards?
We have Kathy Woosterbarth about the RAB meeting, videoing the RAB.
Hello, Kathy Woosterbarth, 7906 Cedar Lake Road. I want to mention actually what Dan had just stated about videotaping the RAB meeting. I do feel like that communities around the U.S. and actually internationally benefit from these. If you are in a community that you want to establish a RAB, you can learn a lot from just viewing these that are easily available on YouTube. So I support that, what Dan had just said. I did want to add something else in terms of the PFAS issues. We are having a Now Need Our Water meeting Thursday at 5:30 here in this room this week. It's the third Thursday of the month. We normally have them. In December, we are not going to be holding a meeting, but there's going to be a lot going on between now and December. So our Now meeting on Thursday. Tomorrow there is a Senate summit in Grand Rapids that a couple of our community members are attending. I was not able to be there, unfortunately, but we would certainly like to view that online. I think that's going to be live streamed, so we can look at that online. Bob Delaney is going to be one of the witnesses, so that should be really great to be able to hear what he has to say in terms of the issue. The next thing that's occurring is at the end of the month, we expect to have the House of Representatives Natural Resources Committee will be having a hearing on PFAS, and so we expect to have some testimony at that hearing. We're uncertain of a date, but we are expecting that to come at the end of November. And then I think on the agenda, Aaron had put on that we're having the community town hall meeting on December 4th, and then the RAB meeting on December 5th. So it's going to be a jam-packed month full of PFAS remediation and solutions. So tune in and attend, please. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Any other cards?
We have Tom Barbrett, about the community nativity.
To quote the great theologian, I'm back. I got the information to John and talked to Jamie, and you know that the response of the community, even before we got it out into the paper, has been phenomenal for the solution that we gave you last month for the nativity. We hope, I see it's on the agenda. I'm not going to speak long. You know what the issue is. I've been with Vinnie again today. We've made plans for the building of the nativity to let you know even before it got to the public because of the response of last. I guess it just goes through a small town kind of thing that happens. We've received over $1,000 for new figures to add to the nativity already, if this is what we can do. So this is just taking off, and we hope that is a solution that the board agrees with, and hopefully we can take care of it tonight, and I'll be on my way to talk to the people tomorrow and to Bronner's by the end of the month to add figures to it. And I thank the board for all their help from last meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other cards?
That's all.
All right, then we move into our consent agenda. Any comments regarding the work session minutes from October 19th and the regular meeting minutes of October 22nd? Any comments on the payment of bills for $145,187.15? Right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, subcommittee reports and project updates. The first is the recap of the Oscoda Township Economic Development Summit.
All right, so we got 52 people to show up on October 29th at the Warrior Pavilion. We had a very engaged group, and we were able to hammer out strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats with was facilitated by Mr. Joe Borgstrom with Place and Main Advisors. We've scheduled another work session with the Township Board to be facilitated on the 7th of December at 10 a.m. Here at the library. We are going to use that as an opportunity to also bolster some of the data we will have posted tomorrow morning on the homepage of the Township's website and Facebook page, the community survey. And that will be, if you didn't get an opportunity to weigh in and prioritize at the meeting on Monday the 29th, you will be able to rank and prioritize the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the community. So as you're going through the survey, think of it as the most or the highest priority is your number one priority. And as you're working through the different options, the higher the number, the lower the priority. So what they're trying to be able to do is rank your number one, your highest priorities as you go through the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And again, that will be right on the home page of the Township's website.
All right, next item, final Township Board work session for Wednesday, November 14th.
All right, so this, on Wednesday, we'll be meeting here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Is what I envision to be the last of the work session before bringing the 2019 budget in front of the board on the 26th of November. And why that's significant is we hopefully we'll be able to pass the 2019 budget and be able to report the city, village, and township revenue sharing portion of the budget with approvals to the Department of Treasury to receive the full payments for the revenue sharing.
All right. Community meeting Tuesday, December 4th, regarding this is a community meeting put on by the State Health Department regarding contamination in the area, which they put on about 2 to 3 times a year at this point. That meeting will be at the community center from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. for kind of people can ask questions directly to different departments. And then the presentation portion of the meeting will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And next is the RAB.
And the next RAB meeting will be on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. here in the library, and it lasts generally 2 hours.
Does anybody have anything else?
I was hoping to be able to gauge availability. I know Wednesdays at 2 p.m. generally work for work sessions, and we had another lengthy conversation with representatives associated with the rate study for the SAW grant that will be wrapping up. And due to holidays and scheduling, we are looking at work sessions either the 28th of November, the 9th of January, or the 16th of January to have Wednesdays at 2 o'clock for work sessions. So I wanted to be able to throw those dates out there. We do not need to meet with UMBA to be able to complete the SAW grant. However, there are very complex spreadsheet models that Mr. Traciak would like to be able to come up here and explain to the board. That's probably going to be a 2-hour to maybe a 3-hour session to be able to get all the questions answered associated with upcoming improvements and what that means to the sewer rates. So again, the 28th of November, the 9th of January, or the 16th of January are when we're going to have availability to be able to meet and go over at 2 o'clock here at the library for a work session on that.
Is anybody good with the, we're gonna have to make a decision now, it's gonna be the 28th of November. If it's gonna be in January, then we can wait till the next meeting.
I can do the 28th.
I'm available the 28th.
Yeah, I'm not available the 28th.
No?
We have at least 2 that won't be available. I don't know about Mr. Gajewski.
That's fine. January, we can wait till then.
Okay.
I'm not sure of my availability yet, but.
Anything else for project updates?
Only the meeting, the PFAS US Senate meeting there in Grand Rapids tomorrow. Listed on the agenda, Ms. Woosterbarth talked about it earlier, just wanted to point that out.
And in our work session on Friday, we had mentioned, I could spend a few words here to talk about the network cabling project at the Township Hall, which leads to us replacing our phone system. So that is underway, and we're still looking into when the dates will be for installation, and there will certainly be proposals coming to this board for approval. But there's a lot still being worked out by the vendors.
Okay.
So let's keep doing whatever incantations are as needed to keep the existing phone system working.
All right, then on to the supervisor's report. Just a reminder about the superintendent's evaluation to bring up at the next board meeting. Other than that, we just have a lot of routine reappointments for several of our boards. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding these reappointments?
Just a minor one. Bernie Schenk participates enormously in this community. He comes up with ideas. He's in attendance here tonight. This coming from a guy whose last name gets screwed up as far as spelling a lot. Bernie Shank. Maybe it's just a typo, but you got him down as Bernie Shank. That sounds like a knife or something like that. S-C-H-E-N-K. Not a big item, but
Corrections too, you might,
Kathy
look
as well.
at Kathy's Worcester Bath,
oh, really?
there's an R missing.
Oh,
Okay, any other comments regarding these reappointments?
I missed that. I didn't get by your name.
No.
All right, then I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Shank for a new term expiring 31 December 2022 for the Planning Commission.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Next, I make a motion to reappoint Ed Davis for a term expiring 31 December 2022 for the Planning Commission.
Aaron, has Ed agreed to this?
Yes. Hey, I've already spoken with everyone, they've all agreed.
Okay. I only asked the question because I thought he was gonna walk away. Wanted to go to Florida or something. No?
Not
Okay.
yet.
Good, he's good.
Is there support?
I'll support that.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Next, to make a motion to appoint James Bigger for a term expiring 31 December 2022 for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Next, make a motion to appoint Jeremy Spencer for a term expiring 31 December 2021 for the Senior Center Building Commission.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Next, I make a motion to appoint Elizabeth Swales for a term expiring 31 December 2020 for the Board of Review.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. I make a motion to appoint Kathy Woosterbarth for a term expiring 31 December 2020 for the Board of Review.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Make a motion that we appoint John Servinski for a term expiring 31 December 2020 for the Board of Review.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Make a motion to appoint David Eiler for a term expiring 31 December 2022 for the Oscoda Township Downtown Development Authority.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Next is the superintendent report. First, the fire department portable radios.
Right. So in the township's 2018 capital improvement plan, we budgeted $14,500 to replace the communications equipment for the fire department. Your packet contains a letter from the fire chief detailing the quantities of the specific communication devices being requested. It also contains an updated quote with shipping associated with 16 ground portable radios, 16 pagers, and 7 of the marine portable radios. And the gross total requested to be authorized by the township board is $14,690.20. So that is higher than originally budgeted. However, after the purchase of the communications equipment, the township has the opportunity to submit for a mail-in rebate of $640 associated with the pagers, $40 per pager. That would lower the net cost of this purchase down to $14,050.20 after the mail-in rebate. So the purchase of this communication equipment requires approval from the township board.
Any comments?
Do you have any idea how old the equipment is that we're replacing here?
No.
Okay. Well, I've had one citizen ask me if, if you change frequencies or something like that, is that gonna have an effect? And I checked with the chief and he indicated that they can modify these, so that's not a problem, I guess, so.
I was just curious, they had 4 bids, and the low bid is significantly lower than the other 3. The other 3 were all pretty much within the same few dollars. Any idea why that, did he have any idea why?
I don't know. You can see on the quote, the Action Communications, they're been celebrating 50 years in business, so obviously they move a lot of radios to be able to have the significant discount like that.
And we don't need to return the old radios to get the rebate. That's just a mail-in rebate on the new ones we're buying? Okay. And have you talked to the chief? Does he think there might be some other departments that might want our old radios?
Don't know. I can check with the chief.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
I'll move that we go ahead with this portable radio purchase to the tune of $14,690.20.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Next, fire department self-contained breathing apparatus project.
All right. So the township's capital improvement plan was previously modified in April. And what that did is authorize $95,184, and that was up from the original $93,000 for Douglas Safety Systems to replace the fire department's self-contained breathing apparatus. So to complete the project, the township board needs to authorize another $1,029.08, bringing the grand total up to $96,213.18. And this is all to be paid out of the fire equipment fund. So I go into great detail here about the freight charges associated with the increase in costs. And I did follow up with Douglas Safety Services based on the conversation at the work session last Friday. I did get an email response and was able to send that out to everybody else. And they noted in the quotes, the upper left-hand corner of the quotes, it said that the shipping is not included into those quotes. So when I was on the phone with Douglas Safety, I said, please make a note in your system. And she was able to make a note in her system for all future quotes associated with fire equipment. We are to have shipping at least quoted into the cost to be authorized by the board. I also spoke with the fire chief about future purchases to be able to have shipping associated on those quotes so that we are authorizing the appropriate amount, that when we come back to the board, we are not having to continuously authorize increased amounts associated with the shipping, that this should be included in that authorization and should be quoted, so that when I come to you, I get the correct amount authorized.
Comments?
I was just curious, in your email, and that was one of the questions we had, was about the shipping. Apparently the shipping was not on the breathing apparatus. The shipping was on the additional items that the fire department wanted at the time, because
Those are the tanks.
the tank
The
refills.
tanks are the ones that are costly to ship.
Right.
The actual mask is not very costly.
And they did not charge shipping on the masks themselves. It was, and at the time, if I remember, what they were asking for, the fire department was asking for in terms of the breathing apparatuses for the total was under what we'd budgeted, $186,000. So they felt there was some additional monies left there to buy these additional items. And so, the other question I have is item number 3 on here. Douglas has been waiting for over 3 months to be paid on this. I'm just wondering why there was a delay on the payment, because we've received the merchandise, correct?
Correct. And that was the breakdown between departmental, myself and the treasurer's office. So that has also been reiterated, that we need to get these invoices to be able to code, and we need them to be able to, large purchases, be able to be brought in front of the board if there's anything different. So I can't give you a specific or a good reason as to why those invoices did not make them to my desk to be coded appropriately.
I can tell you that we received a statement from Douglas Safety, and we didn't have any of the bills, and they were dating back to May. So they were not getting turned in to us. They weren't addressed to the treasurer's office, so we didn't get them. And so when we finally got a hold of them, we spoke with the fire chief and relayed to him what the proper procedure is for turning in invoices, and so we can get them coded and get them paid.
Okay, because I noticed in here, they normally, if it's over 30 days, they charge an additional 3%, and they've waived that 3% for the
have.
past 3 months. So I think it's imperative that we get them paid.
Yeah, when we got the invoice, it said past due, and we were like, we don't have any invoices for this. We just had a statement, so we
Yeah.
went looking for the invoices.
And you didn't have them.
We didn't have them.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the additional $1,029.08 to replace the fire department self-contained breathing apparatuses.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, Township newsletter for fall of 2018.
Right, the Township newsletter, fall of 2018, is attached in the packet for the board to review and approve for distribution.
Any comments?
I think that there should be like a little section somehow, maybe squeeze it in there, outlining the new millages that were passed in August and in November, because there's a total of 5 and 6, including the DDA 2 mills, that would outline how many years it's going to be and what the millage rate is, so that people are aware, because there definitely is an increase to tax bills this season. It might be helpful for people.
When does this have to be mailed out?
I'd like to send it to the printers tomorrow after we approve it tonight. With changes, if possible. We can't wait, definitely can't wait for the next meeting. They gotta be mailed out December 1st. And we'll be stuffing next week.
And we can have that language in here that quick?
Yeah, Tammy can edit. We'll just, I mean, if there's something that you guys absolutely want to keep in there, that's fine. We can squeeze wherever. Or if you don't think it's important enough to kick something else off of there, then.
I think it's a good idea to explain that, you know, especially if you're talking about 2 or 3 bumps, you know, villages.
Well, I can tell you my tax bill went up $115. So I think there's people that are gonna wanna know or get some type of information when they get their tax bill. And I will mention it tonight during board comments and at the next couple meetings, so people are aware.
Okay. Any other comments from the newsletter? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we try to find room for the new millages as outlined by myself, and give Tammy the latitude to make some adjustments to make that happen.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, form-based code update.
Okay. So the Township Board tasked the Planning Commission to determine the merit of form-based code. And this is outlined in the Township Board Goals and Objectives Resolution 2017-16, Goal 2, Objective 6. The Planning Commission is asking the Township Board to vote to approve pursuing form-based code in Oscoda Township. At the November 5th meeting, the Planning Commission voted to move forward with form-based code and obtain estimates for converting ordinance 165 to form-based. Your packet contains an email and a memo from the zoning administrator dated the 8th of November.
Comments?
Well, I'll just expand a little bit on that information from our planning commission, and that was that we did overwhelmingly approve moving forward with form-based code. The question that came up is how much of the township do we want to reform with this new code? Our 165 ordinance needs a good bit of upgrading in order to be where we need to be. And we're hoping to have Munitrex work on that for us. I believe that going to a form-based code, as opposed to putting a lot of money into our existing 165 ordinance, would save the township some money in terms of what Munitrex would charge, because they basically charge for the number of pages and words that you use, and our existing code is very word intensive. Everything has to be described, whereas with form-based codes, it's more diagrams and pictures. The other positive to form-based code, our superintendent is attended the RRC certification process. One of the I don't want to say requirements of RRC, but strongly encouraged is to have form-based code in your township. If you, in order to get certified, you would have to write a letter justifying why you aren't going to form-based code to be certified for RRC. So and the other part of it is that developers, a lot of townships are going to form-based code. Developers are much more inclined to work with communities that have form-based code because it's much easier for them to understand what their requirements are going to be if they come into an area to have institute some projects. So the question we had at our Monday night meeting a week ago was, do we want to undertake the entire township to go under form-based code, which I think would probably be the smart thing to do at this point, as opposed to trying to split it up and have part of the ordinance and part in the form-based. But we're going to get some bids on what that pricing would be. We have a price from Beckett and Rader, sorry, drew a blank there for a second, from Beckett and Rader to do the B1 district, which is what originally we were talking about. When they were contacted to expand that to the B2, they said the increase in cost would be minimal. We did not engage them in a price to do the entire township. So we want to pursue that and have some numbers for the board to compare. But what we're looking for here tonight is just for the board's approval to move forward with the form-based code in one form or another. And of course, we'd bring to the board for approval for whatever the amount of money is going to be for what we deem appropriate to undertake for the form-based code.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve pursuing the form-based code in Oscoda Township and obtain estimates for converting ordinance 165 to form-based.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, the sale of the township nativity scene.
All right, so based on public comments from the prior township board meeting, township received an offer from Mr. Vinnie Eiler with Oscoda Hardware to purchase, store, and set up the nativity scene. Your packet contains a letter from Vinnie Eiler providing an overview of the $100 offer.
Any comments?
I want to thank him for taking this over. It's unfortunate what's occurred that we've discussed at several of our meetings, and I'm happy to see that there will be a home for our nativity scene.
Motion?
Well, I
Sure.
would like
I
to,
move-
I would, before we make a motion, I would just like to thank the area churches that have risen up and come in to support this idea. I think that helps the entire community. This was a little bit of a fly in the ointment here that a lot of people were upset about. It's kind of a sign of our times, but the churches have stepped up and have promoted this idea, and like was mentioned earlier, they've raised some money to add to the nativity scene. I think that's fantastic, and I think Vinnie will do a nice job, and the churches will do a nice job of putting this just across the street from the township hall. So I think it's a win-win all the way around.
I like this grassroots community movement behind it, too.
Yes.
Yeah. So I move that we accept Vinnie's offer to purchase the nativity scene for $100.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Byer.
Oh,
Poor man.
microphone.
I have one final thing to say, if I may. I just wanted to thank you as Mr. Eiler's proxy and Mr. Eiler by extension for the work you've done, and just encourage you in your work, upcoming and long-term work, in that Mr. Eiler, I believe, plans to build a building there. So this is an excellent step, but just the long-term future vision for this, I'm very excited to see it maintained as a structure in the community and what that'll take. So.
All right, roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed.
I have $100 check here from Mr., who gets it?
Oh, actually, she gets it.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your help.
You need a receipt.
I'll give him a receipt tomorrow.
Okay, no problem, I know where you live.
All right, next, a proposal for MIC TV to record the RAB meeting.
All right, the next RAB meeting has been scheduled for Wednesday, December 5th at 5:30 in the library. Your packet contains an email from JD Hawk and the 910 invoice from Mike TV as an example of the $1,005, quote, after 2 discounts are applied.
Are there any comments?
I don't have any, we've had this discussion multiple times, I feel like, so.
The RAB is an Air Force function. It is not a township function. This is something the Air Force puts on, they manage, they handle everything with it. I do understand the benefit to the community of recording it. People can watch it, they can get some details out of it. People in other states learn from it, like was mentioned a little bit ago. However, because this is an Air Force function, I'm concerned about some of the burden being put on the township for this. I'm in favor of recording, the township paying to record the meetings, but I think we need to set a limit as to what we're gonna pay for. You know, I don't think we have to, the township needs to be responsible for a lot of audio-visual going on for these meetings. And if there's other people who do want more, then they can add to it if they would like.
And you're speaking of the future or this request?
I'm speaking of at least for this meeting here. I know Mr. LaRich has mentioned that there's grants available. I know that he's been given all the information regarding those grants, but as far as I know, those documents have not been turned in yet. And then, of course, for the Air Force, so, and I just received a text message right before the start of this meeting from Mr. LaRich saying that there is some things in the work for payment. Maybe we need to postpone until the next meeting and see what comes up.
Maybe ask MIC TV for a bare bones quote also to see what we're looking at.
I mentioned Friday, I'm okay with a camera framed up to the whole room and decent audio. That we've seen that in other meetings similar to this, but one example is the EPA meeting that I believe you took on your phone, Mr. Weed, and that serves its purpose. So for a bare bones model, I know they do more things like the projector screen and things which I think are useful there. Potentially in-room audio. There's more than just the recording of it, but video, the camera set to a wide angle is good from my perspective. And if people need to build on that, then I would be okay with that.
Refresh my memory, but what did we pay before? It seemed like it was 500 and something, and now it's a little more, so, or nearly twice, wasn't it? Am I wrong in that, or?
think that's correct.
I don't remember the exact cost, but I do know it was less.
Yeah.
But then there was a demand to have more video put in
Right.
some way to get better audio.
Right. Well, I guess then I'd echo what was said earlier, that, I think we have to sort of set a bar, what we're willing to do. I don't think we need to turn it into a motion picture production, but at the same time, I think there's tremendous value. I know I use the recordings. So, and I know for a fact that the Air Force uses them as well, because I've been told that. So it's a good note-taking record. But but I just don't know. I don't know what the delta is. This jump up in the value. I don't know what that value really spells for us or for the community. And the other side of it, like you said, Mr. Reed, it's an Air Force thing. I mean, we're kind of dealing with this every time we go through this discussion now, how many times where we get to the point where we have to decide whether we're going to pay for the audio video, and then it's like nobody else is ponying up, including Oscoda. And so, I don't know, just I think setting a limit would be sufficient for me.
All right, I make a motion to postpone recording of the RAB meeting subject until our next meeting.
Support.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, regarding the Awney Medical Center. Does anybody have anything they wish to do with this or postpone it?
I'll reiterate, I don't think, I could use the time, I don't need it, but I think it would be a benefit, at least to me personally. I would prefer to wait.
I support that, if that's a motion.
Okay, did you want to make a motion?
Sure. Move that we postpone this topic till the next regularly scheduled board meeting.
Motion by Mr. Nordine, support by Mr. Byer. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, proposed real estate purchase agreement for lot 066028200002310.
So this was a modified purchase agreement based on discussion from the previous township board meeting on the 22nd. Some concerns were raised, and based on that, this is a revised purchase agreement. It's still for the same purchase price. There are the number of splits previously on there was modified, as well as the request for contingency on the zoning change.
Any comments?
Could you remind me from the last meeting what the asking price was?
$27,500.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the purchase agreement from AirTech.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, we had information regarding the MEDC grant that we received for the service leads on the water line extensions. Are there any comments regarding that?
So based on the discussion from the last board meeting, I went back to the MEDC. And the last page of the PDF was modified. And so basically the language was inserted for the to supplement the previous and future ECWAG, which is Emergency and Imminent Community Water Assistance grants, already being utilized by the township in constructing the distribution water mains, and then install water service lines from the new main to the residences and businesses. Supplement the previous and future ECWAG already being utilized by the township in constructing the distribution water mains.
Well, if you remember, last time my question was on the old Exhibit B, was that they specifically, for Phase 2, directed this money to be used to install water service lines from the new main to the residences. There was no language like that for Phase 1, and so in this revised, they've changed it from, and I'm a little confused by this, from Phase 1, and they changed it to Phase 1.1 to 1.2. I don't quite understand that. But they did add language to the Phase 1.2. I'm still not clear that gives us latitude to use the money for Phase 1 for hookup lines. If you believe it does, and you've had more conversations with them than I have, then that's fine. If they've indicated, and apparently you've expressed to them that we had a concern, and they've rewritten this Exhibit B, I guess that indicates that what we're hoping for is correct. And so in your conversation, if you feel that this clarifies that, then I'm good with that. It's just, it's not as clear as I would like it to be, because they specifically say for water service lines for the new mains for Loud Drive and Woodland, there's no such language specifically for Forest Drive, Bennett, and Dam Road. So
The change in the numbers is to clarify that service lines for both projects.
that they can be used for both. Okay, that's, and when they put in the word supplement, the previous, I was sort of assuming that, because we're planning on using this money in both phases, and so that was our original thought, and as long as that's the case, then I'm good.
This is what we got back from their legal review. And based on those conversations, yes, they want us to be able to use this money how we need it to be used.
Okay.
Does that include the people that I asked the question last time, that originally had their wells tested, that hooked up and paid for their service from the curb to their house?
No, does not account for them.
Will we be looking for revenue to make that happen?
Yes. We need a motion on this one? Did we accept it the last one?
No, I don't think so. I think we had questions.
I believe the way I read the minutes, that it was accepted. However, if there were modifications, it would be brought back to the board. And so there were modifications, and I wanted to bring it back to the board.
All right, so is there a motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion that we adopt this with the modifications that we've talked about.
Does that include pursuing money for the first people?
Yes.
This is just for, just the MEDC.
Okay,
If you want to make a separate motion for the other, then,
we can do that?
yeah.
Okay.
Is there support?
Support.
Support it.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed.
so we can make a motion now?
This would be us, this would be regarding us pursuing the funds to reimburse people who have already hooked up, who were not part of these water main extensions, is that right?
Phase 1 or phase 2,
Okay.
actively pursue. Correct.
All right. Do you want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
Are they people that are in the concerned area?
Yes, the original concerned area,
Okay,
that the original letters were sent to, and people, some of them hooked up, but, and paid the, you know, and they got reimbursed for their hookup, but they had to pay for it to go from the curb stop to their homes,
right.
yeah.
So this will
Those
be
fees.
according to the area of concern map that the health department put out?
Correct,
Okay.
I support the motion.
thank you.
Any chance I could get a reiteration of the motion?
No chance.
Aaron, you said it pretty good.
For the township to pursue reimbursement funding for the residents who have connected to the water main project, or, I'm sorry, who have connected to the water main who are outside of the water main extension projects, but within the state health department's map designating the contamination area of concern.
Right,
Wow, Janet, that was good.
thanks.
Motion by Ms. McGuire.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings.
All right, very good.
Is that legal for you to say that, hopefully?
Roll call.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. All right, next is Lot 24 on Loud Drive.
Right, so currently, the township has 2 listings on Loud Drive 1 for .77 acres. That is listed as $4,500. The second listing is for an adjacent 40 acres to Lot 24, and that listing currently is for $50,000. I would like the board to be able to consider combining those 2 listings into one listing for $54,500. Simply combining those 2 into one, so lot 24 is to be sold with the 40 acres behind it for a listing price of $54,500.
Any comments?
So we're combining the listing, not the parcels, just the listing.
Correct. One listing.
And this doesn't imply a rezoning or anything like that? Any change from, okay. All right,
And the reason is for the easement rights to the 40 acres? That would be a
Correct.
problem?
If that lot 24 were to be sold separately, could significantly devalue the 40 acres behind it. It'd be best to be sold together.
I make a motion to list the 2 parcels in question together for a listing price of, could you please help me?
$54,500.
$54,500.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Nordine, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, MICTV access to the Township building.
Yes, so at the last meeting during project updates, we discussed the situation with the keys and the access of MICTV to the Township Hall. And it was mentioned at that meeting that the point in the process that we were at was that we need to reach out to the fire chief and get his opinion on the process because the equipment's located in the fire barn, fire department. So Mr. Schaefer did that. We got an email back from Chief McGregor that I thought I'd printed out tonight, but I did not capture all of it. So I can verbally relay that his and Mr. Schaefer will correct me if I'm wrong, is that his opinion was that at the very least he would like, or he thinks there should be a list of approved individuals that go through a background check to be given a key. And that it may be a matter of it's possible that the board may want to determine whether it's a matter of convenience or necessity to have that equipment accessed at all times or only while the township hall is open. Obviously, we can make a determination of that. I think MICTV probably has an opinion on the matter. Whether we have them, I'm not suggesting we have them come to the podium, but that is a factor. But that's the relay and the reason I bring this up now is it was suggested at the last meeting when we discussed it to bring it back to this meeting. So that's the development in the project and where we find ourselves at this moment.
I'd like to add that I've since learned that there is remote access to the devices in that rack in the fire barn over the internet. It's secured, but it is also an additional form of access. It's not the same as going up and touching it, but it provides whatever access could be, that type of access. So you don't get physical access, but it would be something virtual. So, I don't know what they generally need more of, frankly.
And it may be something, if we were to decide to go with just open, or the access available during normal operating hours of the Township Hall, that we may need to acknowledge that a response time to a temporary stoppage of the channel, we acknowledge that that's a possibility and that it's not going to get fixed immediately. I think that would be fair.
Okay.
Any comments?
And refresh my memory, was the reason they were asking for access at off hours is if there was maintenance need to be done when other programming was going on? Was that, or what was the?
So the two things I recall is one, in the event that the channel malfunctions or quits working when the Township Hall is not open, getting it back online. That potentially is a matter of we can be patient and have it brought back online when the Township Hall is open. The second factor that I recall is that the availability of individuals is not always coincide with when the Township Hall is open.
For the MICTV?
For the MICTV,
Okay.
yeah, staff or workers. Those are the two.
So that would probably not relate to these proceedings, televising these proceedings, because if something happens
Right.
down there, it's gonna be shut down anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
think
way to
just,
avoid that.
I think, yeah, the one is if the channel crashes while they're programming a rerun of this or of these meetings or one of the shows. The other one is just the other application of not always fitting the representative schedules is more to the point of getting the channel online to this point. Their availability to work on it, to get it online to this point, they can't get in there after hours, they don't have a key, and they're not always available during hours. So that one relates to getting us online currently to this point, and the other one relates to maintaining it as it's going forward. Obviously, there would be overlap, but that's how I understand it.
Is there value in asking them to step up to the podium for clarification?
Do we need further clarification?
Sounded, because it sounded like we were just thinking, we weren't sure we understood, so.
Sure, yeah, in no way I'm speaking for them, certainly.
So if,
I'm asking.
if we want to grant access to a few of their members, subject to a background check, they can have access to the building, or we just be okay if the station goes down in the middle of the night, it'll be fixed,
8 to 5.
24, 48 hours later, depending on when their people are available. Which means if there are people who come in and complain, why is the channel down, then that's what, we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah, we acknowledge that that's a policy decision we made, not.
I'm not a good person to ask. I think that we shouldn't televise on TV. This is costing more money and trouble than than I think it's worth. It's a lot of equipment, it's a lot of time, the insurance costs, there's so much behind putting this onto a TV station, the maintenance of it. You throw it online, it's there whenever anybody wants to watch it, Having statistics for how many people actually watch the show, we may only have 10 people to watch that TV station in our area. Is it worth that cost? Is there a benefit to cost ratio here?
Yeah.
But aside from that,
I think that we should just have the access during their operation times, and if we get a lot of complaints, we can reevaluate it.
I'm good with that.
And I'd be interested to know what adjustments they can make online without physical presence, if.
Could we ask Shady to approach the podium to answer that question?
And I'll be happy to tell you that, sir.
Okay.
Currently, we can remote into both stations. Both stations are up, operating as solid as they can be right now. The only reason we would need access at night would be, God forbid, the whole thing shuts down and we can't log into it. It automatically reboots, however, now, if it's just a power outage, let's say we lose power for an hour and it comes back, the computers are now programmed to start themselves back up and go right back on the air. All the programs go right back on the air the way they're supposed to. This was some of the issues we'd been having about a month and a half to 2 months ago, is when the power would go out, we wouldn't get it back. When we'd log in, we couldn't figure it out. All these issues, and I'm only gonna say it's a miracle, have miraculously cleared in the last 4 weeks. The computers are playing nice, the equipment's running solid, it's not overheating, anything that was wrong is fixed. So that would be the only reason we would need access, is if, God forbid, it just didn't come back up. That being said, if you're happy with it goes down at midnight, we can't get in till noon the next day, okay, that's all right. And Mr. Weed, your comment, you're correct. Maybe the TV station isn't our best option anymore. We are having very good successes online. We can run our programs online. We can run not only the meetings, we can run all the programming we're currently running online. Could we serve a better audience that way? I don't know. That, again, you said a cost justification study. We may have to look into that. Won't disagree with that one bit. But no, the only reason we'd have to get in there is if it went down and could not be remotely restarted. And again, Mr. Nordine, you said it best. If it's off till noon the next day, okay, it's all good. We'll fix it. But the other problem we were having is, recently, both Mr. Joseph and myself have been out of town quite frequently. We do some of the same similar work that Mr. Cummings does in the IT industry. And for some reason, there's been this rash of breaking things over the entire state, and we've literally been out of town for days at a time. And actually, Mr. Joseph's been out of state for several weeks at a time too, so, yes, that's all we need access for, and if it is granted due to a background check, I've already passed 4 of them in the last year, so that's okay, I'll pass another one. I have no problem.
thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Then I'd like to start with a motion that we agree as a board to adopt a policy regarding our stations, that we don't expect them to be maintained outside of regular township business hours. And then I would separately deal with the background check and access.
With the flexibility to revisit if it's,
Of course,
Yeah.
we can always change it down the road, sure.
do they have weather alerts and stuff like that on those channels?
No, I don't think they do that live yet, no. I know they talked about it at one point, but that's something that they would have to install on the roof.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Cummings. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes,
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Motion's passed.
okay, then I would make a motion that we require that, two people from McTV undergo background checks to provide access to the fire barn.
What is the need if we aren't expecting them to maintain the equipment after? I mean,
During the day,
you, okay, so,
Yeah.
okay,
right, yeah.
okay.
This is just for regular business hours.
Yep. And
there's a-
stipulated at two people.
So motion by Mr. Cummings. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Ms. McGuire.
And I would, just as a comment to my own motion, then, that this would unburden anybody at Township Hall who would otherwise during business hours have to stand there maybe and be with them, if that was the, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like escorting them, which I think it's kind of an overkill thing, but that would really, if we're talking about this concern
Right.
of the fire chiefs, then that's what we'd have to
We
consider
would
doing.
have to do that. I mean, we
Yeah.
do that, you have to be fingerprinted to go to the police department.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so this would just unburden that
Right.
problem.
Roll call.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes,
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed.
Question on that, I know you said two, would you mind if more than, like, three pass the background check? Or do you only want two?
let's start with two. We just agreed to two.
Okay,
So,
just two,
fine,
all right.
fine. Choose wisely.
Now we're into our second public comment period. A card does not have to be filled out. There's still a 4-minute time limit, and please introduce yourself when you come to the podium. Does anyone wish to speak? Yes.
Greg Cole, 4507 Bennett Dam Road, Colita the Now. Concerning the $1,000, $1,005 for the video, for the RAB. We're looking, I'm always looking for somebody to supplement, trying to pay for the RAB recording. Even our Township Hall recording, I'm all the time looking. But I think it's a crucial time right now to make sure that we do have I know that you set this for next meeting, but I would like you to consider the importance again of making sure that we do get this recorded. I wanted to ask Dave, at the Economic Development Summit, what was the #1 threat that came out of that meeting?
Contamination.
Right. On the board here, how many representatives do we have to the RAB? We got Tim. How many alternates?
One primary and 2 alternates.
Okay. And you're the head of the selection committee? You were, Bill?
Yes.
All right, I don't see a lot of discussion when I come to the township hall meetings about the PFAS issue here. Aaron does some reporting. Once in a while, Tim's asked to report. So I feel that this taping and recording is very important, because if I'm right, the description of a representative to the RAB board is to bring back education and communication to the public. Is that correct? Is that your duty?
Are you asking me specifically?
Yeah, you're a rep.
Well, I represent the township. I
Right.
think everybody on the board, whether you're community or whether you represent an agency, has a duty or responsibility to be able to disseminate information.
Right.
I think it's largely the reason why each of those people from the community were selected was that they represented a certain segment
Right.
of the population.
So, I guess what I'm saying on top of that is, I don't see a lot of it here. I know that you don't have a lot of time to discuss it here. So, I would like you guys to consider this, at the next meeting, to make sure that we have that money to get that recorded. I know you were talking about half of it, and I know you guys discussed it a lot, that most of you don't seem like it's pertinent. But, and we're tired of asking for it, just like we feel that the Air Force could contribute to it,
Right.
All that. So that's my comment about it. And I want to thank you for what you have put in, which I don't think is fair. But this is where we're at, and I think it's a crucial part. For right now, we got to get through it, and we need all the information and education and communication that we can get. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Yes.
Just back again after, thank you for your support in the sale of the nativity. But I realized as I sat there that I was really concerned about all the board members that they might go home tonight and really not be able to get to sleep, because they'll think, my goodness, we passed this nativity and we have no way to make a contribution to the community organization that got together with the churches. So I'm going to be after the newspaper, obviously, to write an article, and I think they're going to help us with that. But just in case you don't see it, I want to let you know that until the list of churches come out, because all the churches are putting themselves in a position if congregational members can give to their church, and then I'm going to collect it all together. But until that list is in the newspaper, I just let you know that Hope St. John, the church that I serve, is willing to be a clearinghouse for any donations for the community nativity in the addition to the figures. And checks can be written to Hope St. John with just a notation for the community nativity. And they will put it together and put it with all the other checks. So I certainly want you to get to sleep tonight after you write that big check.
I would think another way to contribute, if you need more wise men, any of us here would.
Hey, wait a
Only
second.
one wise woman, I'm not sure about this. And I don't think, now I never want to make another comment.
She could be a shepherd.
Anybody else wish to speak? All right, then we're on to board comments. Does anybody have anything?
I do. I just want to go over the list of the new millages that were proposed in August and November and passed. If you're not aware, just so you know, this is what's due to some sort of what your increase in your tax bill will be. Obviously, if your taxable value's gone up because you've added a garage or you just purchased a home and there's an uncapping, then that will raise the taxable value also. But these millages have passed and will be added to your winter tax bill this year. Police millage for the operation is 0.80 mils, and that is 6 years. Police CSO officer and detective is 0.70 mils, and that is also 6 years. The 911 command is 0.68 mils, and that is an 8-year millage. Veterans Affairs is 0.06, and that's allocated, which means that's gonna continue. Parks and Rec was passed in November for the county, and that's 0.25 mils, and that is a 5-year assessment. If you have any questions, please call the treasurer's office or the assessor's office, 739-7071 or 739-7471.
Anybody else?
I've got a few. First of all, the election. I wanted to thank any workers who worked the election. It's much appreciated by me. It's an extremely long day, and I'm quite impressed by people who return to do it every time. And thank you to the people who waited in line to vote and were quite patient, the entire community, because the line got long at times, and I just appreciated the entire community throughout the day. So I want to say thank you for that. Second, to the long list of people who got appointed to boards tonight, I know quite a few of you are in the room. I need to administer oaths of office. So for anyone who's here and watching potentially, come see me in my office to do that. I'll try and reach out too, but I just thought I'd mention it here. And third, for the PFAS issue, kind of approaching what was mentioned at public comment. This isn't the best format to talk about it. I've recognized the lack of discussion that happens at these meetings. I've thought about it a lot. I think we've made a little bit of progress in adding the project summaries. At least my hope for those is to at least discuss things of those nature. But it just occurred to me to say here, if anybody in the public or watching this wants to discuss or learn more information about the PFAS issue that's going on in the community, I can't speak for everybody, but I feel almost as though you could contact any one of us. And I know personally, call the Township Hall. I would not ever shy away talking about the issue. And any suggestions people have, I think it's a very constructive comment that we can facilitate that discussion through these board meetings as reasonable as possible is, I think, good. And as for the televising, for me personally, the benefit to the community is what keeps us voting for it time and time again, even though it gets delayed and it'll get pushed right before that meeting. I'm not promising anything, but we've done it to this point. I think we'll continue to. Obviously, we're always all looking for other avenues, but when it's come down to it, the community as a whole, this board has found a way to get televised, so I anticipate that happening again. So that's all I have to say.
Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just one comment to follow up on what Mr. Dorney was talking about, the PFAS. I noted in our packet, the Husser report from our water provider. One of the items in there says that our system has not been tested for PFAS yet. The state has mandated that all municipal water systems will be tested for PFAS. None in Iosco County have been as of yet. So that is something that will probably be coming up in the future. Just as a point of clarity on that.
Mr. Bauer?
Yeah. I wasn't able to attend, but I understand there was a kind of a nice little ceremony around the navigation light / lighthouse in recent days. Bad weather and stuff, but it was, and if any of the public here in the room or watching on TV thinks that the navigation light is a nice addition to our town, this was a DDA project, and I'd like to thank them for this as well as the building behind it and the renovation of same. And in the ceremony, I guess part of the program involves some higher ups from the Coast Guard, and we have Mr. Schenk to thank for that. I mentioned earlier his involvement in the community with ideas and stuff. Am I right there?
Yes.
Thank you. You had what, two people?
Brian C. is the chief petty officer for aids to navigation in this area, and he's out of Saginaw. That was the man who spoke.
Okay.
And he had an aide with him from the district, Detroit district.
And,
Helped.
and you invited them.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Shank.
Don't forget about the band.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Oscoda High School Band.
Yeah, high school band.
And
I think it should be noted that in times past, I've seen our band at other affairs or parades or whatever, lack of uniform,
yeah,
street clothes, and I was really impressed when they showed up and all in uniform and everything and did a fantastic job.
and Mr. Scott Moore, the school superintendent, probably had something to do with that.
Well,
Okay.
Anything?
Not for me, thank you.
All right, the Parks and Rec millage that was passed was touted as going to support the bike path. So if you encounter any county commissioners, please remind them of that.
I'll be writing a letter.
I would like to thank all the volunteers of all these boards that we have for serving on them. It's, these are critical to the operation of the township and to benefit our community, so thank you very much. To Mr. Palmer's point here, I just heard today that the Hushra municipal water testing for PFAS is going to happen in the next week or two. And then results will be however many months it takes for them to analyze those samples. Regarding the RAB, the community members of the RAB were supposed to take the information from the RAB and convey that to the community, and then take information from the community and convey that to the RAB. So while we may not talk much about the RAB at this meeting here, there's still supposed to be that flow of communication with the RAB. It's not supposed to be exclusive from the township to the community. We have talked quite a bit about it. We've done a lot of background work regarding it. There's other avenues, such as the health issues are being worked on by the Veterans and Civilians Clean Water Alliance. We have the PFAS Coalition, which is helping to create legislative action at the federal level. And then there's a few other groups that are in different states that are also working on this PFAS contamination. As far as I'm concerned, at the township government level, we're here to try and get clean water to the people, and that's what we've been working on for water extensions. So we've just finished one water extension, and then we have to do the service leads on those. However, we're having some contractor issues on that, which we just did a 100% check on that system today, so that we can take that data back to the contractor and get these fixed, hopefully before the freezing sets in. And then we've just got money for doing another extension. We gotta wait until season warms up, and then we can get that done. And then we're gonna be seeking more money for getting more clean water. The Hushra system is working, is doing some research on ways of filtration for our municipal water system. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago with a company that's at the campus of UNM who specializes in diamond-coated electrodes that's supposed to remove PFAS, but that is only for wastewater. That's not for tap water, at least yet. They still have more testing to do. So if we can get involved in that and kind of get ahead, a cutting-edge kind of technology thing, that's great, but it's still not proven technology. Hopefully we can seek some sort of agreement that we can implement a test bed here at a low cost, and then see how that goes for the benefit of research and for our effluent. So there is quite a bit going on here, but as far as the RABs go, the RAB's been given information to seek a grant for filming, and that grant information has not been brought back to the people who issue those grants. We were told in the beginning that money from the Air Force or from other places was going to be sought after, but yet, you know, especially for the Air Force to pay for it. And we don't have much since then too, so that's part of the whole thing about, we need to control the costs here associated with this. Along with controlling the costs in a few other areas of our township. So, that's all I have. Anything else? All right, then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thanks for coming out.